The reason Trump did not get involved with the Iranians is because wherever he looked amongst his base, he found they were adamantly against entering the war with Iran. Even his former campaign manager, Steve Bannon, known as a prominent Islamophobe, came out and said that we should not be listening to the Zionists who want to push us into war. Israel got itself in this mess, why should we bail it out? We saw MAGA start saying that I can't afford healthcare, I can't afford unemployment. Why am I subsidizing a war that I have no interest in? But my point here is not that MAGA base made Trump not get involved in the war. My point is, what is it that MAGA saw and where did they see it that made them shift from being so unquestionably pro-Zionist to suddenly saying we don't want to get involved with that Zionist at all? And one of the things that is worth noting as I traveled across America, and I want to tell you the story. I was in San Diego, California. California is a very strange place, I have to say. But in any case, no, really, I'll give you an example. I'm from London. London is, the weather is usually cold and it reflects the people who can be quite cold. I can say that because my wife is half English. I have an English friend. Anyway. So growing up in London, I didn't realize how cold I could be in mannerisms until I went to America. So for example, in London, you don't usually say hi to your neighbor in London, right? Maybe the countryside you do, but usually it says hi, so what do they want? So I landed in California, it was beautiful weather, it was November 26th, and it was 28 degrees centigrade, or 26 degrees centigrade. A bit like Durban, which I think is the California of South Africa. It doesn't mean it's better than Cape Town, I'm just saying this looks like California. What's wrong with you? Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Subhanallah al-Azim. So I went to San Diego. So I went to California. When I landed, I had jet lag. It was a very long flight. And then 6 a.m. in the morning, I thought, forget it. Let me just go walk because ChatGPT says if you walk, it helps with jet lag. So I went walking, looking for a cafe or a place to sit. And there's this group of joggers, you know, they're jogging on the street as they're coming down across. And then I look at them and they looked at me. And I looked at them and they looked at me. And as a Londoner, you sort of just walk by. But they went, hey, good morning, how are you? And I went, you're way too happy for 6 o'clock in the morning. I went to San Diego and it was an audience of about, 700-800. But 4 or 5 of the tables were white Americans. And I went, FBI. After the talk, the lady comes with about 30-40 white Americans. Old lady. She comes and she tells me, Mr. Hamdi, we just want to let you know we're lifelong Democrat voters. And I said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. No, I didn't say it. I said, oh, of course I didn't say it to her face. I said, in my heart, and to her face, I said, okay. And she said, but Mr. Hamdi, this time, we will not be voting Democrat. I said, why? I'm like, Wallahi al-Azim, I swear to you, she burst into tears. She said, Mr. Hamdi, I never knew the extent of what Israel is doing in Palestine. I didn't know, I swear to you, Mr. Hamdi, I never knew. I didn't know that's what they do to children. I didn't know it was like apartheid. I didn't know. I can't go to sleep because of all the videos and images that I'm seeing on my phone. Every time I'm seeing the images, I think, how was this covered from me? How is it I never saw this? How is it that I didn't know that my taxpayers' money was going to it? And I want to let you know, Mr. Hamdi, I will be punishing genocide. I will not be voting for genociders. Now, I was a bit stunned, I'll be honest with you. And I know my argument was we should punish genocide. But in that moment, because I was so stunned, I went, but what about Trump? And she went, Mr. Hamdi, we survived 4 years of Trump. 40,000 Palestinians did not survive 4 years of Biden. Mr. Hamdi, we fought him before and we survived, we'll fight him again. But Mr. Hamdi, and she cries, she goes, Mr. Hamdi, I would rather be a society that stands up against genocide and fight fascism tomorrow than be somebody who forgives genocide just because I want to be comfortable at the expense of those Palestinians. And I said to her, Wallahi, it's a joke. Wallah, a joke. I said it as a joke. Wallahi, I said it as a joke. I thought, can I invite you next week to give khutbah at the masjid? The reason why I mention this story is what made MAGA, what made these people suddenly have their hearts split, by which when the Zionists went to arrest Mahmoud Khalil, somebody in the US with a green card, and the Louisiana court said that he should be deported because whatever Rubio says, Rubio does. Another judge in New Jersey said, no, he shouldn't be deported because this might be freedom of speech issue. Does anyone know who Ann Coulter is? Right, I'll tell you who Ann Coulter is. Ann Coulter is a very prominent right-wing commentator with a podcast which a few million, they watch it. Ann Coulter interviewed Vivek Ramaswamy, who was an American candidate for the Republican nomination of Indian descent, who went on her podcast, and Ann Coulter said to him, I love your policies. I love everything you say. I do not disagree with you in any of your policies, but I could never vote for you. And he said, why? That sounded Texan. He's not Texan, but anyway. She said, because you're Indian. This Ann Coulter, when Mahmoud Khalil was detained, she tweeted and said, guys, I don't like Mahmoud Khalil, but I'm worried that people are getting arrested just because they express freedom of speech. Does anyone know who Bill Maher is?
Yes.
You all know Bill Maher. Bill Maher came out and said, I think Mahmoud Khalil is a scumbag. But he shouldn't be detained just because he expresses freedom of speech. The most unlikely allies, the most unlikely Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't understand why we're stopping people from freedom of speech. This is dangerous. If they go after Mahmoud Khalil, what else will they start banning, preventing? Mahmoud Khalil walked free last week.
Allah.
Sami brings isolated examples. No, I came prepared. Sahih non-Muslims, Book of Legal Battles. There was somebody called Sami Hamdi, student at Columbia University. Shout out to the students who are here. I heard some MSAs are here, mashallah. May Allah bless you. You're lunatics, but mashallah alaykum. Like the way they go to these encampments, subhanallah. It's incredible, really, really. And no one even brings them biryani, they still do it. Sami Hamdi led some of the encampments in Columbia University. He was detained. The Zionists said, let's go after him. Sami Hamdi walked free. Rumaysa Ozturk, she's just on a visa, studying. She wrote an op-ed. All she said was, genocide is wrong. And the ICE went on the street, they surrounded her, three people like this on the street. And they grabbed her and she disappeared to Louisiana. They said, how dare you say that genocide should stop? And you don't have the right, and we can revoke visas from whoever we want. Rumaysa Ozturk is still in America today, released from prison, because the Zionists thought they could control the courts in America. They found that when they told the Americans that you need to stand by Zionism, Americans said, get out of here! And they released all of them. But one of the most magnificent things, and I'm saying this now because apparently his origin is African. There is a man called Zohran Mamdani. So, in Sahih al-Muslim in the book of polls, عن YouGov قالت, YouGov is a poll. For those of you who cringe, there's nothing grammatically incorrect that I said in Arabic. Grammatically what I said is sound. So, calm down please. YouGov said that support amongst Democrat base for Zionism is now below 21%. Andrew Cuomo ran against Zohran Mamdani and made the campaign all about Zionism and Israel. And the TV presenters would say, where will your first visit be when you become mayor of New York? They said Israel. And everybody went, yes, I will also make Hajj to Israel. I will also make pilgrimage to Israel. Zohran Mamdani said, I'm a New Yorker. New Yorkers are a bit... Anyway, I'm a New Yorker. I'm going to run for New York. And they went, but Israel, what will you do to make Zionists feel safe? But Israel, what they didn't realize was the more they mentioned it, the more Cuomo, who was in the lead, started declining. Not because people resonated with Zohran's policies, but because they said, I don't understand why we're New Yorkers and we're all like talking about Zionism. Like, it really doesn't make any sense. Are you New York candidate or are you Tel Aviv candidate? And Cuomo was like, Israel, poof, in the polls. Zionism, poof, in the polls. Israel, poof, in the polls. And suddenly, Mamdani soared 51% in the polls and he smashed Cuomo in the race. Zionism is now a political liability. Zionism is a political liability. But my question to you again is this, because somebody said Sami is a motivational speaker, and that's the greatest insult you can give me. Because what motivational speaker means is, you have no substance, you just make me feel good. And I'm not a motivational speaker. Is anything I said factually incorrect? Nothing. It's nice. It's just if you open the other eye, it will make sense. But just open a little bit today, just for me. Zohran Mamdani won because he made it about New York, while the other side made it about Zionism. And as a result of the da'wah that was spread by you and by those non-Muslims who care about humanity, who care about justice, those protests where you see the Jews protesting with us, the Christians protesting with us, the Africans protesting with us, you see all these people across the spectrum of humanity on the streets protesting with us. The Million Man March in London, the protests in Joburg, the protests in Cape Town, protests in Paris, in Berlin, in Washington, everywhere across the world, even in Sydney, they're protesting. Everybody moving and mobilizing. And for those who doubt those protests, I get it. You're trying to say, I've been protesting, but it's not having the impact that I want. I want to again reference you, Sahih, non-Muslim, book of podcast, chapter of Jordan Peterson.
Oh!
Now, I want to go on record before I say this. I do not watch Jordan Peterson. Wallahi, I don't. Qasam. I was on a plane flying, I think from Dallas to Atlanta or whatever. There's so many flights, I can't even remember which ones I'm doing. I did one this morning, I think. Yeah, this morning, Durban to Cape Town. Durban. And a brother WhatsApped me and told me, Sami, you need to watch this. I said, I'm not watching Jordan Peterson. Now, wallah, bro, you need to watch this. I said, I'm not watching it. He goes, just watch the first 3 minutes. I said, Wi-Fi on United is actually quite good. Yalla, let's see, it streams. So I open up and I watch. Jordan Peterson says to Naftali Bennett. Naftali Bennett is the former prime minister of the apartheid regime in what they call Israel. I call it occupied territories, but they call, I don't know what the state of whatever it is they call it. Freedom in it is nice, isn't it? SubhanAllah. If I was in the UK, US, I have to be like, like it be called anyway. He says, what do you have to say to those who are protesting in Paris, Berlin, Washington, South Africa, all these places? What do you have to say to them, these ignorant people who don't realize that Israel has the right to self-defense? Naftali Bennett says that, first of all, these protests have, quote, devastated our influence amongst our allies in the Western capitals. Devastated our influence. Devastated our influence. So much so, he doesn't say this part, but I'm going to give a tafsir of what he says. So much so that when Andrew Cuomo gets $25 million from Zionists, he loses to Mamdani, who has nothing, anything like 25 million. وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. Allah said it. Allah said it. Allah said it. وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. Just idfa, not just, that's not in the ayah. But idfa billati hiya ahsan. Idfa, push. Push with what you have. Push, for Allah says it can flip. So public opinion, clearly, what you did here in South Africa, I pronounce it correct, ne? Everyone's going south, as if you're... Everybody's going... I watched Blood Diamond, I'm trying to copy them. Where are the diamonds? But the point I want to make here is this, and I understand there's some humor in the story, and that's fine, because I know you're sitting on the seat and I'm trying to find an excuse for you to stay here a bit longer. But Ibadallah, do you see the domino effect? Do you see how when you speak, social media, protest, attention goes on Gaza, and then people start asking questions, people start debating in their homes, people start doubting, then they become convinced of your argument, and then it starts to manifest in their actions, and then they start voting accordingly. They punish Harris in the US elections, and then they vote Mamdani in New York. They reject Andrew Cuomo. They tell Trump, please don't go to war with Iranians. وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ ادْفَعْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. You push a little bit and it resulted in the huge thing. Ibadallah, trust Allah subhanahu, trust Allah subhanahu. Trust in the fitrah, trust in the fitrah. Trust that Allah sends you support. They tried to say you guys are rabid extremists and the like. It was our Jewish cousins who went to the protest and said there's nothing extreme about standing against genocide. They formed a line in the protest to say this is an issue of humanity. Don't go after our cousins, we stand against genocide too. May Allah bless these Jews. I went to Georgia. I met with African American pastors. I said to them, guys, I prepared my argument. I researched. If Jesus was alive, they'd bomb Jesus. If Mary was alive, they'd bomb Mary and the bombs and the kids and the like. And then the 13 looked at me, they went, well, thanks for coming out. Your accent's a bit funny, but cool. But we're not voting for genociders. We're Christians. We don't believe you can bomb kids and get away with it. Problem you got, Sami, is members of your own community who want to forgive genocide to live a comfortable life. And I walked out with the tail between my legs like, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. But the reason why I find it fascinating, this aspect, is I asked myself, when you read the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which I believe to be more political than it is spiritual, to be put quite honestly, like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if I told you his story without telling you it was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, your reaction would not be wow. Your reaction would be, why on earth did he do half the things that he did? Why go to Taif with no army? Why go to the middle of Quraysh and call on them when you have no material superiority? Why go and shout in the Kaaba and they go and hit you and then you keep going again? Why go when you don't have the means that you need? We need to build power first before we call to the da'wah. There is an aspect of the seerah that strikes me about the way in which we interact in South Africa and abroad when we talk about public opinion. And I want to emphasize this point of fitrah. Why? Because I asked a friend of mine, we were talking in a group, why did Candace Owens become pro-Palestinian? And one brother said, Sami, you gotta see her interview with Norman Finkelstein. That's the interview that changed her. So I said, okay, fine. Norman Finkelstein is a bit slow in speech, but I'll watch it on 1.5 speed. No, may Allah bless him. I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean, for those who doubt watching Norman Finkelstein, he's worth watching. I said it to make sure that the slowness of his speech should not put you off. That was the intention of that comment. So I watched the interview, and Candace Owens starts with Norman Finkelstein, and he says 1948, 1967, and she's like, but Israelis say, but Israelis say, but the Zionists say, but the Zionists say. And then, suddenly, he adopts the tactic of Ja'far ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Norman Finkelstein says to her, in the middle of the interview, after he gets frustrated with the rebuttal of the facts, he says, Mrs. Owens, I know that you're a mother, and I know that you are pregnant. Mrs. Owens, is there any context or scenario that someone could give you whereby they would bomb your kids and you would say it was justified? And her face goes, and for the rest of the interview she says nothing while he hits the point home. What did he do here? He spoke to the fitrah. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib was standing in front of Najashi, the NATO ally of Quraysh. What do you call your economic agreement with the US? AGOA. He said, Najashi, I have an AGOA agreement with Quraysh, and I don't want to jeopardize that. So you guys have come here, they're demanding your extradition. Guys, put them in chains and send them back. And they said, wait and hear us first. Let us show you the videos of what's happening in Palestine. But let us tell you, it said here that this is freedom, that you fought for freedom of speech. You fought against apartheid. He didn't say that part. But you fought for freedom of speech. At least hear me out. Najashi says, we in South Africa, we know what the fight for freedom looks like. They've laid upon me an obligation to hear them. Speak. Ja'far Abi Talib says in English language, but there are subtitles if you don't understand it. Ja'far Abi Talib says, we worship gods of wood and stone, elements of our own manufacture. We had few earthly laws, but no heavenly laws. The rich neglect the poor, and the act by which, the natural pity of man by which a brother lifts his fellow brother up, is described by them as upsetting social order. To this inhumanity a prophet has come. And why should you be surprised that the prophet comes? Did not God send Moses and Jesus? Who taught you those names? Who taught you those names? Why? They are in our Quran. Amr ibn As says, these people are trying to ruin our society. They're saying Palestinians are equal human. They're saying that all men are created equal and women are equal and the like. And Ja'far responds and says, he doesn't speak about fact. He talks to fitrah. He doesn't give statistics of female employment in the economy. He doesn't say, I have female friends. He doesn't say, my wife works and cooks. He says, God created man from one male and one female. Amr, surely of all people you at least respect the womb that bore you. And Najashi says, why are your 300 gods tongue-tied while his one God is eloquent? Why is Fox News tongue-tied while his TikTok account is eloquent? Why is New York Times tongue-tied while your Instagram account is eloquent? Why is CNN tongue-tied while your Facebook account is eloquent? Do people still use Facebook? But I'm aware that I'm running out of time, and I'm aware I'm notorious. There's a saying in America, tell Sami to speak for 5 minutes, he'll speak for an hour. And they told me 25 minutes. I'm joking. But the reason why I'm pushing this is, I know a lot of you have heard this before, but ibadallah, many of you are looking for the solution to the crisis. But Allah does not give you the solution to the crisis. Allah doesn't show it to anyone, even the prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala merely asks you to strive and to mobilize and to trust that He will deliver the solution. I want to give an example before I go into the final stretch. I was in Texas. I won't say which sheikh it is. He has visited South Africa before, but it's not the one you think it is. Wallahi, it's not. Wallahi, it's not him. It's not. It's not Sheikh Umar Sulaiman. Wallahi, it's not him. Wallahi, it's not him. Wallahi, al-Azim, it's not him. I was in Texas in a car going to speak in a masjid. Wallahi, it's not him. Wallahi, al-Azim. Stop it. And on that day, the Starbucks share price had dropped. So I was in the car going, Sheikh, have you seen the news? He said, what? Starbucks share price has dropped. He said, don't do it, Sami. Don't do what? Don't go to the masjid, tell them it's because of them. I said, well, why do you think it is then? He said, basically, Sami, you have the X and the Y. And supplies and demandism and Red Sea cargo shipping and Maersk and I told him, Sheikh, did you study economics? He said, no. I said, so you're a jahil talking to a jahil about a topic two jahil know nothing about. With the greatest of respect. I told him, why do you want to believe? Why don't you want to believe in the power of da'wah? Why don't you want to believe in the power of action? Why don't you want to believe in the power of idfa? He said, listen, I forbid you from telling my audience tonight that it's because of them. Now, my mother, who is here today, is the daughter of a mujahid who fought in the mountains of Algeria against the French. You won't be clapping when you hear the next comment. As a result, they are known to be hard-headed and stubborn. That I was raised in a household by it, alhamdulillah. Perhaps it's the reason I am the way I am is because of the She causes a revolution wherever she goes. Anyway. So, the fiery blood exists, so I went to the masjid and I stood up, I said, Ibadallah, Starbucks share price has dropped. Because of you, celebrate takbir! And 3 days later, the CEO of Starbucks was sacked and Starbucks issued a statement saying our share price is dropping. When did the sheikh believe? The sheikh didn't believe in those 3-day interim periods. He believed when Reuters reported that the Starbucks share price had dropped because of, quote, a globally coordinated campaign of boycott alleges that Starbucks is involved in Gaza and around the world. And that's why they sacked the CEO, and the new CEO did a video begging people to buy that coffee, begging them by saying that we have nothing to do with it, we have nothing to do. And the sheikh went, Amanna, I believe. I believe. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in Sahih Muslim and Bukhari, it is narrated, that he said, مَنْ رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرُهُ بِيَدِهِ. If you see something is wrong, let him change it with his hand. Let him change it with his hand. Let him think carefully where he spends his money. Let him think carefully where... And if he cannot, let him condemn it with his tongue. Let him raise his voice. Let him speak. And if he cannot, then condemn it in your heart. But know that's the weakest of faith. Know that that is the weakest of faith. Know that to do nothing is the weakest of faith. The Prophet ﷺ gave us this hadith, but we had to believe it when Sheikh Starbucks said it makes a difference. The problem was 2 months later, Ronald McDonald reported that the share price had dropped. So I was with the same sheikh. I don't know why, I visit Texas quite often. Texas is quite decent. It's not Cape Town, but it is what it is. Sorry, Sheikh Mazda lives in Dallas, I shouldn't have said that. So we're together and I told him, Sheikh, have you seen? He said, what? McDonald's share price is dropping. Don't do it. Don't do what? I read about this one. What did you read? See, semiconductors in Taiwan What's happening is the South China Sea and the American ship is going this way, and China and Tibet and this. I said, Sheikh, you study economics. He said, don't do it. He said, you're a jahil talking to a jahil about two issues. Why don't you want to believe? Why don't you want to believe when Allah says in a hadith Qudusi that if you take one step towards me, I take 10 steps towards you. If you come walking to me, I come running to you. Why does that hadith not move you to believe that if you truly take that single step of boycott, Allah can result in a domino effect and it results in My son Sulaiman used to love the filet fish in McDonald's. Him and my daughter Selma. May Allah protect and preserve her. So as we're driving past McDonald's, they both smell. But they didn't do anything. They were just unfazed. And then Sulaiman says, Baba. He's 5. Baba. And I'm like, Sulay? And he says, I'm not going to ask you for filet fish. I said, why, my boy? Because they're feeding the people who are killing the Palestinians. The fitrah, he knows he needs to do his part. He's doing his part. Don't buy it for me, Papa. The boycott. I met these tech guys in San Francisco who set up the boycott apps. You know, the ones like No Thanks, Boycott, and these others. And they showed me a letter from, do you guys know what Capri-Sun is? Capri-Sun is a juice company. I don't know why I said it like I'm in a third world country. Like, you all know what it is. No, I didn't mean it that way. Wallah, I'm sorry. Like, what? I didn't mean it. Wallah, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it that way. Yeah, wallah. They showed me a letter of cease and desist. And they said, Brother Sami, you need to read this. I met with them when I was in Doha. They were from San Francisco, but I met them in Doha. They said, Brother Sami, you need to read this. You need to use it when you talk about boycott. I said, what am I reading? Zoom in because it's a bit small. I zoomed in and it says, we are writing to you to order you to cease and desist from listing us on your boycott app. Because we inform you that 1 month ago we divested completely from the Israelis, but you still keep us on your boycott. Get rid of it already! Get off the boycott app! We're sick and tired of people boycotting us. Itochu, multi-billion-dollar Japanese company, cancelled all of its memorandums of understandings with the Israelis because it didn't want to be legally liable for genocide because of the ICJ case. Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund has begun to divest from Israel because it doesn't want to be found foul of the ICJ case. AXA withdrew from Israel because it doesn't want to be found foul of the boycott and the ICJ case. The ICC arrest warrants emerge on Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, meaning Netanyahu had to fly around Netherlands and over Ireland because they didn't want to fall foul of the ICJ case. The reality is, Ya Ibadallah, boycott works. I was in America, and I promise I'm going to wrap up soon because I can see people going, isn't it the Sami Hamdi talk? I'm joking. Wallahi, I'm joking. I was in America, and America have this phenomenon of Yemeni cafes. Sheikh, you know very well about them. So I went to these Yemeni cafes, and I'm telling you, they're full. They're rammed all over the country. Michigan, Texas, California. They're rammed. The coffee is good, but not that. Like, it's very good, but not like, wow. Like, the Adili Shai is very, very good, but it's not, blow me away, I'm going to drive 5 miles for the coffee. Like, it's good. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. It is very good. But the secret is not in what they're selling. Because I went to the Yemeni cafes and I said to them, guys, this is fascinating. I took out my notebook. Explain to me how do you Muslim companies compete with Starbucks and compete with... He said, Brother Sami, this is a recent phenomenon. I said, I know it's recent because I never heard of you before. They said, brother, we set up in 2019. I said, okay. 2020, we made a loss. 2021, more loss. 2022, on the verge of bankruptcy. 2023, we broke even. 2024, record profits. I said, what happened? And they looked at me and they went, boycott. I said, what do you mean boycott? They said, Brother Sami, the Ummah always had the ability to create great companies. They just never had the taqwa to be careful where they spend their money. The Ummah always had the ability to make peace and to compete. The Ummah always had the ability, they just didn't have the taqwa to consciously choose where they put their money. And my brother, after the boycott, we are seeing our profit soar. The Ummah is not weak, the future is not bleak. The Ummah has resources. The question is, how do you use them? We've been boycotting for 18 months, and look how the Israeli economy is suffering, where Moody's is downgrading it, and companies are leaving, and the settlers from Brooklyn are on planes now trying desperately to leave, because they believe it's not their land, so they're not willing to stay and fight for it, while the Palestinians stay in Gaza, stay in Palestine, because they know their land belongs to them. But Ibadallah, I want to finish on this point. I just realized, I said that seriously, and I realized why it's a meme now. And Sheikh Mazen grabbed me the other day and said to me, I need to give you a piece of advice. And my heart went, uh-oh. And I thought he was going to say maybe one of my jokes went too far. The only joke I think I'll take back is the orange man. My father, if he hears that, he will call me and say, fear Allah, don't do that. So I take that one back. I do take that one back. I thought Sheikh Mazen was going to rinse me the way my father does. And instead he went, stop telling people you're going to finish on this point. Stop it. Because you're making a pact and you're breaking your word. So I got maybe about 21 days of fasting to make up. So I won't finish on this point. But what I want to say is this. Ibadallah, I'm not talking about little actions. You might see them as little actions. I'm talking about actions that genuinely made a difference. I'm saying that the Muslim governments, many of them became complicit in genocide. They're not the ones who have caused all this shift in public opinion. It was genuinely ordinary people like yourselves. It was the collective action. Every little action is what collectively together managed to cause this shift, whereby Israel is now a pariah state. And the reality is that even militarily, Israel hasn't taken Gaza. It's been over 18 months. You're telling me the most powerful army in the world can't take a small strip of land. It's because they might have the F-16s, the Palestinians have Allah. They haven't taken Gaza. They haven't taken Gaza. Do you think it's because Netanyahu is generous? Do you think it's because he's kind? Do you think it's Netanyahu is a good man and that's why? It's not. He can't do it. He's struggling. The Palestinians are standing firm, so why are you wobbling? The Palestinians are holding firm, why are we hesitating? The Palestinians keep going, why are we complaining of being tired? The Palestinians are the ones under the bombs, we're the ones saying, nah, let's scroll past and see Ronaldo's goal for some Saudi team. Ibadallah, the reason why I'm here is not to tell you anything you don't know, but to plead with you. To say to you, you have more power than you think you do. More power, you're manifesting power you don't even realize you are manifesting. You are part of the reason why the changes are taking place in America and in the UK and in the whole global order. South Africans like to tell me the story that they defeated apartheid. Maybe you defeated it locally. Apartheid globally still exists. Maybe you defeated it here and locally. But where does the selfishness come from that you believe that we're all truly free? Why is Ramaphosa under pressure today? Because when they brought the ICJ case, what did the Zionists start doing? They went, South Africa. They pronounced it wrongly. South Africa. You want to do the ICJ case? Let me trample on you and kick Ibrahim Rasool out of Washington. Let me go and threaten the economic agreement. You think you're free from apartheid? Maybe locally, but globally, you go back down in your position. How dare you challenge us? How dare you challenge the international order? Get back into the field. Make money for us through the economy. Make money for us and make us rich through your economy. 40% poverty, keep it that way, but make us rich through your economy. The apartheid of the world still stays. You might feel free in South Africa locally, but globally they are trying to affirm an international order that is apartheid with every one of its features. Nelson Mandela, Madiba, when he said that the liberation of South Africa is not complete without the liberation of Palestine, it wasn't a spiritual saying. It wasn't a casual display of solidarity. What he meant was, we won the local battle, we still have the global battle. The Palestine being colonized shows the international order that allows apartheid still exists. We don't rest now. We don't go home now. You have to keep fighting. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep mobile. You have to break apartheid everywhere. And ya ibadallah, the reason why I'm asking you to do it, is because I understand that some of you might be feeling fatigue, and I'm really wrapping up here. Some of you might be feeling fatigue, really.
Some of you might be feeling like Nuh alayhi salam. ربي إني دعوت قومي ليلا ونهارا فلم يزدهم دعائي إلا فرارا وأني كلما دعوتهم لتغفر لهم جعلوا أصابعهم في آذانهم واستغشوا ثيابهم وأصروا واستكبروا استكبارا. You might be feeling like Nuh alayhi salam when he said, Allahumma, I've called on my people day and night. I tweet day and night. I do TikTok day and night. I call on them every night to stop the genocide. But the more I call on the world, the darker it gets. The more they insist on what they're doing. And when I call on them to stop the genocide so you might forgive them, they put their fingers in their ears, they cover their faces, and they treat me with arrogance. Maybe you're feeling like Nuh. Maybe you're feeling like Nuh. Open the Quran and see your mirror and parallel in those stories too. For they are not fairy tales and fables, they are all stories true. Maybe you're feeling like Musa alayhi salam, where over and over he pleads with his community to come out and protest, to go with him, to go and follow him. And each time they say, what's the point of the protest? What's the point of sacrificing the cow? What's the point of going to the sea? What's the point of going to this? Maybe you're feeling like Musa alayhi salam. Musa felt it too. Maybe you feel like Musa alayhi salam when he was scared. I'm scared I could lose my job, I could lose my livelihood. Maybe you're feeling like Musa when he said, رَبَّنَا إِنَّنَا نَخَافَ أَن يَفْرُطْ عَلَيْنَا أَوْ أَن يَطْغَى. Allahumma, we're scared that if we call to what is right, they will beat us, hurt us and punish us. And Allah says, I'm with you, I see and I hear. And even with that reassurance of the Quran, Musa still feels scared. فَأَوْجَسَ فِي نَفْسِهِ خِيفَةً مُوسَى. Musa, when he faced up against the sorcerers, Musa felt that fear. Allah reassured him again. Allah brought him victory from where he did not even expect it. Ibadallah, maybe you feel like Yusuf alayhi salam, where people are starting to go about their daily lives as if Gaza is not happening. The way when he told his companion in the prison, when you get out, tell your ruler about me so I can get out too. And the guy forgot about Yusuf, so he stayed in the prison. Bid'ata sinin. Maybe you are feeling like Yusuf. Maybe you feel like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when Allah said, مَسَّتْهُمُ الْبَأْسَاءُ وَالضَّرَّاءُ وَالزُّلْزِلُوا حَتَّى يَقُولُ رَسُولُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعُهُ مَتَى نَصْرُ اللَّهِ. The Prophet and the Sahaba were tested. They went through tests and trials and tribulations, spending their money and their souls and their wealth, until they got to a point they were shaken so much about how dark the world was becoming that the Prophet and Sahaba said, Sallallahu ala Rasul wa radiyallahu ala Sahaba. They said, when is the victory of Allah coming? These sentiments that you're feeling are prophetic. The prophets have it too. But why do I tell you stories? Why does Allah tell you stories? He tells you so that these ayat are in the middle of the surah, not the end. These ayat are in the middle of the journey, not the end. They're in the middle of the trial, not the end. Keep reading the story, keep reading. Read your story, read it in Musa, read it in Nuh. Keep reading the story and you will find Nuh is saved from the flood while the oppressors are punished. Yusuf comes out Al-Aziz. Rasulullah enters Mecca and Musa alayhi salam cracks the sea into two and he walks straight through it and Pharaoh's island drowned. Ibadallah, read the Quran and see the parallels and the mirrors that are in the life. Use the Quran as your companion in this. And I leave you with this. For those of you who are saying, he's come here to give us a motivational speech, may Allah forgive you. For those of you who say he came to us a motivational speech and he didn't give us a solution, I want to tell you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to you. Allah said, وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةَ وَسَعَ لَهَا سَعْيَهَا وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فَأُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ سَعْيُهُمْ مَشْكُورًا. Those who strive for the sake of Allah and they believe in Allah, meaning they're striving on the basis that Allah is worth it, that Allah will deliver. One way or another, Allah will deliver. Allah says their striving is rewarded, not the result. Allah monopolizes the result for himself, but gives you a choice whether you want to choose to strive or not. I don't know what the solution is, but I don't need to know the solution. The Prophet Muhammad, when he dug the trench, didn't know how Ahzab would be defeated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought that solution for him. I don't know what the next step will be, but I can tell you, I was in Bukhara 3 weeks ago. I stood in the same place where Genghis Khan stood, under the minaret of the main mosque of Bukhara. I stood where Genghis Khan stood. I can inform you, my dear brothers and sisters, Genghis Khan and his oppressive army went, Islam stayed. Soviets came, they went, Islam stayed. The ethnics in Bosnia wanted to erase Islam. They left Islam State. We have been here before. We have fought before. And every single time we won. Allah won. Allah's victory and promise is true. I don't know how it's going to come about. What I do know is so long as we move, Allah will deliver His promise true. And when we meet the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam under that wonderful tree in Firdaus, when we go and sit with him, with our Habib Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when we look on his beautiful face and say, Ya Rasulullah, is that you? And as we sit and tell him of a wonderful gathering in Cape Town, South Africa, we'll show him how TikTok made the difference. We'll tell him, Ya Rasulullah, we did it for you. And we will say, Ya Rasulullah, we never saw you, but we loved you and moved for you. We never sat with you, but we loved you and we moved for you. And we said when Palestine was free, as the Algerians said when Algeria was free, Ya Muhammad, Mabruk Alik, Al-Jazair Raj'at Li. Oh Prophet Muhammad, congratulations. 132 years of occupation and we returned Algeria to you. We will say one day that Ya Muhammad, Mabruk Alik, Palestine Alik. Ibad Allah, keep moving, keep mobilizing. It's coming, it will be true that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Barakallahu feekum, assalamu alaikum. Next.